welcome to the One Film After Another podcast. I am your host, Colin McPherson, and I am joined by today's guest, Todd Barnes.
Talented director, writer, producer, and a professor at Sacred Heart University and part of the FTMA program. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
We are here to talk about Paul Thomas Anderson's first feature film, Part 8. Which came out at Cannes, at least, in 1996. Todd, tell us a little bit about your relationship to this film.
So yeah, you gave me the list of all the Paul Thomas Anderson films that you were going to do, and I think I circled the first like 4 or 5, and you gave me this one, which is I think interesting because even you asked me today if I saw it when it came out, and I didn't. I'm a few years younger than Paul Thomas Anderson, so I was in my senior year of college when this came out, and I think I saw Boogie Nights first, and then even probably Punch Drunk Love and Magnolia maybe even before I saw this movie. So I had to go seek it out on a VHS back in the day. But it was, a really inspirational sort of example of how you can start an independent career with a movie that's, not too expensive, not too big, and then be able to build from that. And my brother and I were filmmakers together, and we drew a lot of inspiration from that.
And I think that Paul Thomas Anderson, while he got his start here, and maybe it wasn't the easiest road for him to keep going, a lot of his crew from Boogie Nights is also his crew from this movie. So he found his guys, and he actually got Boogie Nights made before this film came out. He got his producer, Daniel Lupi, would help him more often, Barbara Telliver, Christine Sheeks, the casting director. His cinematographer, Robert Elswit, did a lot of work for him. It's a rotating cast of crew and of characters, but he very much, like a lot of great directors, has his guys that he sticks to.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't think I tracked that as much, but that also sort of resonates with me when, we sort of started our career with short films like Paul Thomas Anderson did with Cigarettes and Coffee. We started at Sundance with shorts. We had our first feature at Sundance in 2010, and we did the same thing. We brought our cinematographer Danny Vecchione with us. We once you start learning how people work and you can trust them, even when you get to bigger budgets like he did with Boogie Nights, it's such a relief and such a comfort to bring your cinematographer, your AD, your producer, even your sound people. I mean, anyone who worked with you before is going to make the process better. And so that's really cool to hear that, he kept those people along with him. Some people try to move up to the big time and get to the next person. And so it's nice to hear that he brought his crew along with him.
Yeah, and he brought his crew along with him, and it helped keep that same feel of the good parts of Heart 8. And if you look at Heart 8 or you look at Magnolia, like, there's a lot of similarities there, both structurally and with characters and Paul Thomas Anderson characters, and we'll be examining this throughout the entire season. But Paul Thomas Anderson characters very much have a similar motivation. A lot of them are these lonely people who don't feel like they belong somewhere or feel like they're misfits. John C. Reilly's character searching for anything, and he will even reach out to strangers who offer to take him to Vegas, or Jimmy, who is far from an excellent role model, or Clementine, who, she isn't the best decision maker from some of the steps she takes in this movie. I think, but all of those people also are looking for a sense of belonging, for a sense of place. It's with the exception of maybe Jimmy, who I feel like kind of has what he wants to do down. But do you have a read on that?
No, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking of Bill Macy's character in Magnolia too. And I was just talking to somebody about Punch Drunk Love the other day. Punch Drunk Love is like one of my top 5 films all time. And we didn't have the language for it back then, but now you watch Punch Drunk Love and you're like, oh, that's a neurodivergent man.
Yeah.
and that this is explaining him trying to connect and fall in love. And so that's really interesting. At the time, it was just characters that couldn't connect. We didn't talk in that way. And then now that you bring that up and you look at all these characters all the way through, yeah, I mean, even, there will be blood, man. That guy can't talk to anybody.
No. Or even look at One Battle After Another, right? Like, these are people who are actually prevented for fear of their safety from making real, legitimate connections with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating to think of it that way. But yeah, I think looking through any kind of filmmaker's career, the kind of things that they've done and how they built, just even looking at Cigarettes and Coffee to going from the short to the feature, right? So it's cool. It's worth seeing. It's like a good, really good student short, and you can see where he's starting this filmmaking style, what he's going to do. And you're kind of in a diner, and you're moving the camera a little bit around, and then when you get to Hard Eight, you see a little bit more formality in the moving of the camera, and you're getting a little bit more cinematic. And the performances are great, but I don't think you see his kind of pushing into that quite as much as you'll see in like Magnolia and stuff like that, where everything is kind of, we're gonna go to extremes with people and let people really go. And so you should just see, as a filmmaker, you mature. I say this a lot in film school. We have a graduate film school here at FTMA, and I talk to students all the time about reps. And if you've played sports, or if you've done any music or done anything in your life, danced, you can do reps at your house by yourself. You can play the flute all day long. You can sing. You can look in a mirror and dance. To get one rep as a film director, you need 15 to 70 of your friends to give you 5 12-hour days or more, and then you got one, right? And so as a filmmaker, when you see them evolve, you really can see these leaps and bounds. And like you're saying, I wasn't even aware that he was shooting Boogie Nights before this came out. So even in that sense, this is his first feature after a short. Then you can see Boogie Nights. He takes that next big swing, and then you're like, okay, Magnolia. And I think I remember, it's funny, this is pre-internet, so you could look it up, I'm sure, and find the actual quote. But I think I remember back in the day when he got Magnolia, he said to himself, I don't know if I'm ever going to get a big budget like this from a studio. I'm going to spend it.
Yeah.
And so that's where you get a lot of the frogs falling and all that stuff. He's like, I'm going to spend the money. And that's another, that's evolution of a filmmaker too. You only have these steps that you can make. So when you have the chance, you want to try something.
And you see that with his current film, One Battle After Another, where he's definitely taking a lot of big swings with a budget he will, I feel comfortable saying, probably never get again.
Yeah.
Which is
I think he's comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I think Warner Brothers is comfortable with never giving him that big of a budget again either. But I think that what you made is a very interesting point with the leaps and bounds. But I just want to give you one more fun fact about the whole Boogie Nights was made before this release thing. For those of you who don't know, he had a very troubled post-production on this film. He was having a great time shooting this film, but he could not deal with the post-production process. The studio wanted two things: a worse cut and to change the name to Hard Eight. Paul Thomas Anderson took his upfront payment of $300,000 for Boogie Nights, and he used it to leverage himself to get the good cut, but he lost the name Sydney, and he went with the name Hard Eight, which, if I am being perfectly honest with you, I think is the right thing.
The title's better?
I think Hard Eight is better. I think when you are, as much as I don't want to see anything Paul Thomas Anderson is done taken away from him, when I look at Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography, I am infinitely more attracted to watch his small independent feature at the beginning of his career, Hard Eight, than I am Sydney. I would think that's a movie about Australia, and it is absolutely not about Australia.
No, I'm going to keep making this all about me. So my first feature that we went to Sundance in 2010, it was called Homewrecker. And when we got our distribution deal, in North America, they changed it. So if you look it up now, it's called The Locksmith by Brad Barnes and Todd Barnes. But we had a separate international distribution deal. And the international company did not change the title.
Okay.
They left it Homewrecker, which is actually doesn't make any sense. It would make sense the other way, because Homewrecker means something here and it doesn't mean anything anywhere else.
Yeah.
So then we had to deliver the movie twice at our own expense. Ridiculous. Like, we had to go and do post-production and give them a master with the different titling for international and national. And it cost us money. And so we had an MG, which is, when you hear a movie's bought at Sundance, it means that a distribution company wrote them a check, but it's a minimum guarantee against future earnings. And so, say they write you a check for $100,000 for your movie. That means that you have that $100,000, and then the movie has to make, say, $200,000 before you can get another penny. And so that's the money probably that he got from the first one. And so we had to use some of that money to do our international distribution deal.
Yep.
And now I have a movie out there that has two different names. Like, it's as if a lot of people know about Sydney and Heart 8. And so it's the same kind of deal. You make your movie, you edit it, it's done, you show it at Sundance, or Cannes in his case too. And then the distribution company can change it if they want, because they're paying for that right. And so he got in an interesting legal case basically about who got the rights, and they came up with a negotiated result which allowed him to do his edit, but he lost the title. And so there's tons of stories about little Hollywood things like that. I mean, Harvey Weinstein used to edit stuff without telling people all the time and then release another version. So especially when you don't have any power in the industry, that's the kind of thing that will happen to you. And so I think he came out pretty good. I mean, I agree with you. I think Heart 8's probably better anyway. And to get your cut is the real issue more than anything else.
And I think, but the thing is, for Paul Thomas Anderson, he cuts his own trailers. Like, he's very involved with the advertising process. Like, the title for him is a very important part of the movie. And while I think it ended up better, that doesn't mean I agree with how it happened.
It's always good to meet a new friend.
This film starts with Sydney finds John sitting outside of a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
And John looks just about as miserable as any human has ever looked on film. But in this scene actually gets literally reframed later on in the movie.
Right.
And that's something I'm definitely going to want to talk about. But at the beginning, this seems like just a meeting of pure chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious, what kind of reaction did you have before you saw that reframing later on in the story of this guy just randomly comes across this guy who's down on his luck and is like, let's go to Vegas?
Yeah. I mean, I think, Paul Thomas Anderson does a good job of sort of setting that up in the first instance. Well, first of all, just in movie language, right? You see your main two characters meet. We know we're going to now follow them on a buddy journey for the rest of the movie. But it's a really weird proposition. There's an older guy. He finds a guy despondent outside. He invites him inside for coffee, and then he invites him back to Vegas, or was it Reno? Anyway,
honestly, I can't remember. I've read a lot about this movie. I cannot remember.
So he invites them to go back with him to the to gamble, to casinos together. So, especially at the time that came out, I expected the response that John gave, which was, are you trying to sleep with me?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that it's designed, because it's really unusual and you don't know why. And so now he says, he dispels with that very notion quickly. The Philip Baker Hall, Sydney's like, that's not what this is about. So bang, now you have the question. We're all sitting there. We're like, oh, that's a guy. Okay, I'm going to pay attention to that guy. That's an older guy. They're kind of interesting. And now they're going to be together, but I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why did that old guy do that? And so now you have the central question of the whole movie, which, as you say, when it's reframed, makes sense. But it's the spine of the movie. It's the driving question. Why is this happening? Why are we here? Why are we meeting these people right now?
Yeah, in that diner scene, there's actually probably my 4 favorite quotes in the movie. Sydney says to John, Sydney is, of course, played by the wonderful Philip Baker Hall, and John is played by John C. Reilly. Sydney says to John, "In my experience, if you don't know how to count cards, you ought to stay away from blackjack." Now, on the surface level, that's just solid advice. But especially when we learn, like, how, and as we go through the movie, where we see Sydney really views himself as a father figure type scenario to John, and we learn about maybe Sydney's prior occupations, that line sort of carries a new meaning, where he's really talking about, like, don't put yourself in situations you're not very much in control in. Like, don't do what you don't know what you're doing. And it's a very simple piece of advice, but, like, it has that second meaning, and the second meaning is also just a very simple piece of advice, but John takes it on a very surface level, which kind of shows a little bit of ignorance on his part, or maybe at that point, I don't think he's asked if Philip Baker Hall or Sydney's trying to sleep with him. So maybe he's just, like, not sure what's going on, but it's very clear, even from the very beginning, on rewatch, what Philip Baker Hall is trying to do in that scene, and he's trying to convey the, I want to be a father figure to you. Let me help you.
Right. Well, also on the rewatch, right? We can talk openly about this, right? It's not a spoiler situation.
Yeah, no.
Do you think Sydney? How long has Sydney been watching John?
Honestly, I think part of me thinks that he just got there, and maybe he followed him back from Vegas.
That's what I think. I think he saw this happen.
I think he saw him lose the money. I
Right.
think he saw him spend the money he, quote unquote, broke even with
Right.
to get back, which I'm sure he didn't break
He
even.
did that.
That's what I say when I lose
Yeah,
money.
back to zero.
But he's, I don't know. I think it's a very interesting scenario to think about, because it's possible he followed him longer, and it's possible this circumstance also just happened right into his lap.
Right.
And he knew of him, and maybe he had loosely followed him from time to time, but he saw this man who he knew he had killed his father, and was like, this guy looks down on it. I'm going to see if I can make his day better.
Yep.
And then turns into, why don't I try to replace that father figure he never had? And father figures, another very important motif and characteristic in Paul Thomas Anderson movies. Thinking through it, I don't know if there's much of that in Punch Drunk Love, but I think every other movie is, like, very solidly, like, there's some form of fatherly dynamic at play. One battle after another, and There Will Be Blood, arguably his two best movies, lean the most heavily into it.
Yeah. Now I'm searching for it in Punch Drunk Love in my head. I'm like, there must be.
Well, that one, it's more of sisters, right?
Yeah. Well, he's got the family dynamic.
He's got the sisters, and yeah, but Magnolia, it's very much there. Magnolia, even I'd argue Phantom Thread has it, but some other great lines are in that movie. Going back to that one scene at the Tatner, I'm gonna read you some of these lines. John says, "I know 3 types of karate.
Yep.
Okay, Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, and regular karate."
Yeah.
Which is hilarious, because he's categorizing karate as a type of karate.
I mean, it sounds exactly like it's from Step Brothers, which makes me think. Have you looked up the script yet? Like, is the script published? The screenplay for Hard 8? Because when I heard that, I was like, I bet he's improvising that. That sounds like John C. Reilly.
It very well might be. And then he has another line right after this. A, you give me a ride. 2, you give me $50.
Yes.
And C, I sit in the back seat.
Yeah, now that feels written.
That feels written.
Yeah, that feels like Paul Thomas Anderson. And in fact, I would say, and I love this movie, but it feels like somebody writing their first movie. A lot of the dialogue is very, like, staid and mannered rather than natural.
And it also feels like someone who's trying to maintain some level of control over his actors.
Maybe, yeah.
And you talked about the progression from here to Boogie Nights. to Magnolia, where he allows his actors to have more freedom. He doesn't seem like he's allowing anyone, maybe other than Philip Baker Hall, to have some freedom here.
Yeah, I heard
Jimmy seems like he's kind of doing. Sam Jackson plays Jimmy,
Yeah.
who we'll get to later on in the story, but he feels like he's very much doing Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, well, also, I mean, when you're a new director too, there's just so much going on. It's hard to like be consistent throughout. I had read that Philip, not Baker Hall, but Seymour Hoffman, had improvised that whole section.
that's not surprising.
And so, after having read that, I was like, oh, maybe he was allowing it in certain times. And that's particular line with John C. Reilly, I was like, that is straight out of Step Brothers.
Yeah.
And you know Step Brothers, those guys, the way they make films, there's a ton of improvising, obviously.
Yes.
They just do take after take of tries. And so in that moment, I was like, that just seems like John C. Reilly stepped out of this character and was John C. Reilly for a second and then got back in.
But the other thing is maybe he suggested to Paul Thomas Anderson. Like, there's a lot of ways that that works, and I think that John C. Reilly, I'm honestly not a huge John C. Reilly fan. I prefer him in more of his straight comedic roles.
Okay.
I think that he is just a little too. He looks a little too depressed in this movie towards the end for it to work, or towards the middle, I guess, for it to work. I like him much more in Boogie Nights, but I'm kind of done with him by the time Magnolia rolls around. And Paul Thomas Anderson seemed to have been too. Have you heard the story about John C. Reilly and Paul Thomas Anderson, why they stopped working together?
No, I'm fascinated.
So
Give it to me.
they're still very good friends, but John C. Reilly told Paul Thomas Anderson, you don't have to keep casting me in movies because you're my friend. If the part's right for me, give me the part. And Paul Thomas Anderson, he said that while they were filming Magnolia, he did not cast him in a single movie for the rest of his career, which has to be demoralizing when one of your best friends and one of the best directors in the world is like, yeah, I don't think you're actually good enough for any of the
Give me
parts.
permission.
You're good enough for the first one.
Yep. It's people working with people. Who knows?
Well, and the other thing I want to talk to you about is it's kind of shocking how big this cast is for an independent film.
Yeah.
Especially for an independent film where it's not like an actor-director or someone who's really done anything much in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You have Samuel L. Jackson. This is 2 years after Pulp Fiction. You have Gwyneth Paltrow a year after Seven.
Yeah.
You have Philip Baker Hall, who this does seem like a type of movie he would do. But John C. Reilly was at this point still pretty unknown.
Mm-hmm.
That Samuel L. Jackson is an insane pull for this. And he's talked very openly, at least recently, about his desire to do popcorn movies or movies that he wants to see. And that, I guess it's similar to how he chooses roles in the 90s, because every role I could see him in, he very much seems like he would enjoy. But he's doing it at much higher budget levels now, and he's not doing as many independent roles, or those independent roles are getting more buried and not promoted as much. Or they're just with filmmakers who, quite frankly, aren't as talented as Spike Lee and Do the Right Thing, or Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas, or Paul Thomas Anderson. So it's an interesting relationship we have with Sam, because the last 20 years has been what? Star Wars and Marvel.
Well, I will say, though, having lived through that time, something you are missing is that Sam Jackson, before the internet era, was famous mostly for being in all the movies.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not surprising to me that he would be in a lot of different movies. The other thing, which is just specific about the era, which I lived through, is in the 90s, first of all, Sundance was even more powerful back then. So he went to the Sundance Labs, and the Sundance Labs is a big brand name, and famous people will come and work on those things. That it still works like that today, but back in the 90s, it was like Tarantino, and people were coming there. Everyone was looking for the next big person. So he had that behind him. The other thing I think is useful, and I don't know how much having a dad who's an actor or a voice matters, like he was in Hollywood, but Brad, my brother and I are from Middlebury, Connecticut, and we went through the NYU graduate film program, raised money, started making movies, and then ended up sort of competing on this level. And one of the things we learned from being basically hicks from Connecticut is it's super complicated industry. And any kind of knowledge of the industry is good. Like if my kids want to go into work in Hollywood, I can tell them what to do, but we had no idea about anything. And so there is a level of being an operator where if you grew up in Hollywood and your father was in the industry, you know how to do things, you know how to make moves. So that you combine that with the Sundance Labs and the sort of thumbs up that goes with that. And I can see, so for me, the surprising one is actually Gwyneth Paltrow. Philip Baker Hall, he was bringing with him. He wrote the movie for him. And then Sam Jackson was in everything. And so why Gwyneth Paltrow? And she's Hollywood royalty already. She grew up with a famous dad director and knew all that stuff. So I don't know, maybe she wanted to play a hooker part. It was famous to get hooker parts back then. And so she got into it.
Yeah, including documentaries. Samuel L. Jackson has 249 feature credits.
Yeah,
and that doesn't include TV.
Yeah, and it's picked up in the last 15 years. Like back in the day, if you look at anyone's credits, they did 3 movies a year, maybe 4 movies a year. If you look at his, he was pumping them out, man.
Yeah.
Sam Jackson works,
and most of them were at least decent.
No, I mean he's
and he was good in a lot of them.
But he didn't say no. He's a lot of actors are worried that they'll never get a part again, so they take whatever they can fit in their schedule.
Well, Gwyneth Paltrow is actually a very interesting example of that because she worked a lot at the beginning of her career, and she doesn't work a lot anymore. She's done mostly Marvel movies since really the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, but I don't think it's because she doesn't want to work.
I think she doesn't want the parts.
Yeah, she's done it already. I mean,
she's done it.
Up her dad was a director, so she's. People get tired of their careers.
Well, she's going to be in Marty Supreme this fall. She's starting off an incredible press tour with Timothée Chalamet, 2 of the best press tours of all time. She had a great story about how she congratulated Timmy on being a boyfriend of a woman with kids, and that was the point of the story is I didn't know he was dating Kylie Jenner. And it was a 2-minute
Big Chalamet
story.
news, man.
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow broke it to you.
No, she didn't know that he's been dating her for 3 years apparently.
Oh, she didn't know that.
She's like, yeah, no, I was just talking to him the whole time. I'm like, this is so punk rock of you. And
that's so funny.
I'm like, this is the most Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, that's so funny. She didn't know
ever.
He was talking about a super rich woman.
Yeah, billionaire girlfriend.
You overlooked all that and still dated her. What a good guy. That's awesome.
But back towards Hardy.
It's possible Gwyneth Paltrow is out of touch. It's possible. It's a remote possibility.
There is a non-zero chance. I will say, Gwyneth, come on the pod anytime.
Yeah, no, it's true. If we can talk about it.
However, getting back to the movie, Hard 8, there's a little bit of John learning how to cheat the system in Vegas. I'm going to call it Vegas because it's said that Jimmy owns Vegas and he's the mayor of that town in the movie. And Jimmy's there, so I assume it's going to be Vegas.
Yeah.
But he learns how to cheat using rate cards. Now, I am not 21. I have never been to the casino, which is actually true. But I have gambled, and I don't understand how you could actually turn gambling into a profitable business. But he seems to have done it, but it seems like the kind of thing where it's you can do it once, and then you have to actually get good, is the way Philip Baker Hall described it. And they're basically living in Vegas off of different, what I would assume are scams. And they seem to make a good life out of themselves. They have a really nice hotel room after the 2 years later cut. And they're dressed well, they're ordering drinks. Philip Baker Hall sitting around playing Keno all day. And I will say one moment where I was like, this is a really good John C. Reilly performance, other than that diner scene, was when he accidentally wins at the slot machine.
Yeah.
His face didn't even register him winning as a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't tell him that was in the script. Like, that's how shocked he was. I was like, he had no idea this was coming. This character didn't even register but part of it is really sad. Like, this character is sitting at a casino and he couldn't really think of the possibility of, oh, I might win something here. And I mean, we laugh at it because it is funny and it's a really good joke when he's like, I need a bucket. But like, it is sad. Like,
he's never won anything. He feels like he's never won anything and doesn't know what to do in the moment because
his dad's been killed.
Mm-hmm.
His mom is dead. At this point, he does not have Sydney has not offered him the $6,000 it would take for him to bury his mom,
Mm-hmm.
which he had tried to win in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And now he finally wins some money, but he wins like what, $300 off the slot machine, and he scams like $250 off the rate card. And he's at $550. They go up to the room and they're like, and Sydney's like, hey, you realize you cannot win $6,000 here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yes. Sydney's like, okay, well, I have a guy who's in LA. I'll call him. We can make this work somehow. And they do. And then we cut to 2 years later and we see Sydney playing Keno. Clementine comes over, and this is an introduction to her, as we've already discussed, played by the wonderful Gwyenth Paltrow. Yeah, I mean, Gwyneth comes in, and she's ready to go. She's firing on all cylinders pretty immediately. She is another person who is longing for a father figure. And I'm trying to think of another father-daughter dynamic, really. I'd argue Phantom Thread has a sick father-daughter dynamic. Or even a mother-son. It's very inverse with Daniel Day's character and his sister. But I think that they have a very much... And a lot of that is about care and, like, taking care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of hints at... I guess what I'm trying to say is Anderson talks about his father through ways in that movie that aren't necessarily through a father and a daughter character. But I would say that really Heart 8 and One Battle After Another are the main Anderson films that really tackle a father-daughter dynamic. And it's really interesting. It took him a whole 29 years to come back to that, especially with father-son being so prominent of a motif throughout his work.
Yeah.
She plays it really well. She's very much looking for his approval, but really wondering at the same time, at least until a little later on in the movie, is this person trying to sleep with me?
Right.
She's very much reaching out for that fatherly support and that fatherly love, which he gives her much more unconditionally than he'll give John. Even with what he has done to John and John's family. He is very much, in my opinion, he seems more interested in helping out Clementine, being more patient with Clementine. Although that sternness does come out when she makes one of the worst decisions in this movie. Which,
Yeah. Well, can I bad pitch you another interpretation of that?
Oh, please.
Rather than the father-daughter thing. I think he thinks of Clementine as a match for John. And that's his motivation for dealing with Clementine. And I think it's all born of the same thing. I don't think he goes around. He's met a lot of waitresses playing Keno all over the world. Why this one? and I think he sees an opportunity to complete John's life because he's still playing out this guilt game, and she's a tool for that, and maybe he, you know, shows that he cares for her by not sleeping with her when she asks that, but that could be a fatherly thing. It could be just that's you're supposed to be with my friend.
Well,
So I mean, I think both. Obviously, these are movies, so you can take them however you want. But I think, you know, his motivation and why, you know, why does she enter the story at this point too? From a story point, is what is her purpose at that point? Is she another main character, or is she there to serve a purpose for the other characters?
well, I think it's a really interesting perspective, and it's something I definitely considered when I was thinking about this movie much of the last week. But I think it's probably a combination. He clearly thinks that they're a good match. He puts Clementine up in John's room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, very clearly, he is looking to set these two people up. But at the same time, and you see this with a lot of father-in-laws just in the real world, but he very much has that same protective view of her as if he was her daughter. And the way that we're talking about John and Sydney, right? He views him almost like a son. He's trying to become a father figure to him. I think maybe his character feels like the correct step is to become like a father figure to her too, if they're going to be together. And he somewhat views Clementine as an extension of John, but he's also very much caring for her as her own person.
What if John wasn't there? How would that have gone? The interaction between Sydney and Clementine.
I do think at the beginning, the whole "you don't have to flirt with me" thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably stays. That seems like at this point in his life,
But has he said that to any other Kino?
we don't see.
What? But in your mind, he's been
In
playing Kino all over all he does is play Kino.
In my mind, he says that to quite a few people. I don't know if he says it every time.
Right. So why does he pick Gwyneth Paltrow then to be the father figure too?
Well, he picks her to be the father figure too. One, because of John, right? And if we take John out of the equation, that's a huge thing. But it's also the fact that she is also so clearly lonely. It's the two parts, and I don't know if they can.
No, I think that's all true. But so here's the point of my point is, Sydney, who is our main character and we love and we want things to go well for him. This is how movies are made. This is a great thing about movies. Is a terrible person.
Agreed.
Sydney is basically the worst kind of person there can be. Not only is he a murderer and probably a thief, but now he's going to go meddle in this guy's life like he thinks he's going to help him. And then while he's doing that and turning this guy into a criminal,
Mm-hmm.
he's also going to give him the prettiest Kino waitress he saw in all the Kino waitress moments. Like, that's what sets her apart from all the other Kino waitresses.
Well, part of that is true, right? And I don't disagree Sydney's a bad person. And I think that Sydney, he's a very interesting character. I saw him compared to a samurai in the kind of, he does really bad things. He really doesn't have a great past. But he is still, one, very principled, or at least that's the front he puts on, and he sticks to it, like, even if it's just a front, like, he is sticking to these principles. And two, he does seem to, in whatever perverse way we want to talk about it, care about, in his opinion, what is best for John.
Right.
What I am saying is, as much as it couldn't have happened without him picking out Gwyneth Paltrow, who's the prettiest woman, right, for John, I think he feels in some perverse way as well that it also has to be someone who is incredibly down on their luck. It has to be, it's not just that, like, one set of criteria that it's just because she's the most beautiful woman. He wants somebody who he can feel like won't override John in the same way that Jimmy does, because we see he doesn't automatically accept Jimmy. because Jimmy has his own ideas. While he is also not a good person, Jimmy has his own ideas and Jimmy has his own feelings, and especially towards women, and that is a main difference between Jimmy and Sydney.
Yeah.
But it's not the only difference, and I think it's proof that Sydney isn't just looking for Gwyneth Paltrow to be a partner.
Yeah.
He's looking for someone to be a daughter. And remember, something we haven't mentioned is Philip Baker's character, Sydney, does have kids that do not talk to him.
Yeah.
I think it is, and he says kids, which is multiple.
Yeah.
I think part of it is he is looking for that second child.
Yeah. Maybe. And he's super bad at it because the
Yes.
person he picks for his son immediately ruins his life.
Yeah. Well, you can argue that John's life had been ruined far before with the complete inciting incident that happens way before the movie of
Killing his dad.
killing his dad.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, Sydney is...
He ends up kidnapping a guy, like, within...
immediately.
Immediately.
Clementine stays the night at their hotel room. They wake up. They go out to lunch. And Clementine leaves with another guy.
They get married first, right?
Well, they get married. Then they go to lunch on their honeymoon.
Sydney's terrible at this.
Yes. Sydney isn't even aware that they're married.
Yeah.
And they give him the tape, and he does seem genuinely moved by it,
Yes.
which is shocking. But it's so funny because everyone in here is bad at what they do,
Yeah.
except for Jimmy.
Yeah.
And
Well, Jimmy's pretty bad at what he does.
well,
Jimmy just robbed a murderer and then didn't think twice about it. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad hood work.
but that's realistically, Jimmy is bad at the last thing he does. But robbing isn't necessarily something I think it's implied that Jimmy does a whole lot of.
Right.
I would say that John C. Reilly is bad at doing a lot of things in this movie. Gwyneth Paltrow is bad at her job in this movie.
Yep.
She's good at waitressing, but she is not a good hooker.
No.
Sydney, who at this point in the movie you were led to believe is just morally repulsed by the idea of hookers, because at this point we don't know,
Yeah.
right? We do not know that he's killed his wife. We don't know he has this terrible past. We are led to believe that he is this old silver fox gentleman.
Yeah.
He is perplexed. He is absolutely out of his mind at the idea that this girl did not think to get paid up front.
Yeah.
Like, and you just watch one movie and you know, okay, you get paid up front, right? Like,
Yeah, I like the observation that they're all bad at what they do.
which, once again, not something that's unique to this movie with Paul Thomas Anderson. And it goes very much back to everyone here is kind of a loser part.
Mhm.
But Samuel L. Jackson's character, Jimmy, I think it's interesting because he is kind of bad at robbing. But before then, he seems to be a pretty good security guard. It's worth noting when Jimmy and Cindy meet.
I mean, just
He's-
by the very fact he's friends with John means he's a bad security guard, right? John's a criminal, and he's made friends with one of them rather than arresting him.
Is that the place he works at?
Yeah, but if you're a security guard and half of your friends are criminals, you're probably not a great security guard. That's the only point I'm making. He doesn't seem to be that interested in security. He seems to be more interested in what his angles are from being a security
He
guard.
does seem to be more, but he also views him as his friend, and in the same way, it's like people making bad decisions out of a feeling of responsibility. And he gives John the gun, and then Cindy, when they meet up later, when Sydney's being blackmailed, he's like, "Why would you give John a loaded gun?" He's like, "Why would I load it?"
Yeah.
Because John is a moron. Like, it is well it is well established that he and Clementine are in terms of intelligence, simply below. Like,
Yeah.
Jimmy and Sydney have an idea of what they're doing.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's really interesting, and I think Jimmy's character, to me, is one of the more interesting characters in this film. I want to talk a little bit about Philip Seymour Hoffman, though,
Okay.
because that is one of the great actors of all time. This is one of his big roles. Twister is also this year, which is a movie we will probably not be covering,
He's great in Twister.
but that is a phenomenal performance.
Yep.
Man. And
Small part, but he stands out.
and Hoffman works with him on Anderson, I think, on every film except for There Will Be Blood, until his unfortunate passing, which is, that's just a tough one to miss. But I think his performance here is very much a performance that will get you to work with a director on any project you want. The idea that his entire scene was improvised was crazy. I watched this for the first time this summer, and then I rewatched it again twice in this last week. And both times I rewatched it this week, I could not believe he was only in one scene because he was, the way he was remembered in my mind from the movie was such a large presence.
Yep.
I couldn't, it was shocking to me that he's only in one scene. And it's a long scene.
Yep.
It's a really good scene, and I think it's a scene that's still not even about him. That scene is very much still about Sydney.
Yeah.
In the Heart 8 and the
Yeah.
recurring theme of Heart 8. Then the only person that winds up hitting the Heart 8 is Jimmy in the movie again. And I just think I think his scene is probably the best scene in the movie. But there's probably like 3 I'd consider for that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scene from this movie?
Well, just to talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman a little bit more, because, you know, like I said before, Punch Drunk Love is like one of my top 5 favorites, and he's not in that movie a ton either.
No.
And it's just, all I do is quote that. All I do is say, that's that Mattress Man. Like, and you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman, like you said, was such a tragic loss just in terms of art. And because he's been in so many good things, and him and Paul Thomas Anderson together were so good. Actually, Zeke Hawkins, who's a directing professor in the graduate program here,
Yep.
he worked on Capote and was the director's assistant, and so got to know Philip Seymour Hoffman really well, and was able to talk a little bit about just, first of all, he was just cool to be around, and like, you know, like you would expect, but also just so inventive and so creative and so live on set, and then just to trace him all the way through the PT, I'd never really thought of it just through all the Paul Thomas Anderson movies, and he plays so many different things in it too. But yeah, so I love that scene in here, and like you said, I looked up the same thing and read that he had improvised it before I watched it again. And it just feels so good. And the other thing I like about it, too, is obviously I'm not in the room, but I just try to imagine what it's like directing a scene like that. And what you have is 2 people at a craps table, and we've been with this one guy, and he's totally measured and seemingly in control. That's his whole thing. And so you put him up against somebody else doing the same thing with the complete opposite energy. And in it, that character, the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, recognizes that they're the same guy. And that's just a really interesting moment because they're both very much on the edge in the same way. Philip Seymour Hoffman is the embodiment of it, and Philip Baker Hall is on the exact same edge, but just pretending not to be, acting in a different way. And I just think that's a great way to show that bit of that character, because he's not in control. Like we just said, he's making terrible decisions all the time. He's trying his best. Maybe he wants to be a dad. Maybe he wants to fix his life. But none of these choices are good. Like,
No.
After 2 years with John, bringing him back little by little, you're like, now I'm going to get him a girl. And this is the girl. And within 24 hours, he's kidnapped a guy.
Yeah, within like 18.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even get the full 24.
Right.
It's truly stupid how this works.
Yeah.
Because you look at this and you're like, okay, I know what this movie is. Like, it's a gangster movie, kinda. It's a gambling movie, kind of. This isn't anything new, but what elevates it really are two things: the direction of the camera, and the acting. And those two things got recognized during award season. Nothing else. This film was nominated for 5 Indie Spirit Awards. And let me say, it wasn't a great year for the Indie Spirits.
Did it get anything at Sundance?
I don't think so, actually.
All right, then.
I think the short film did.
Right.
Best Picture that year at the Indie Spirits was The Apostle,
That's pretty great.
Chasing Amy,
Also great.
Loved, Ollie's Gold, and Waiting for Guffman.
Hilarious.
It was nominated for Best First Feature. It did not win. Eve's Bayou won. In the Company of Men, The Bible and Gun Club and Star Maps were also
Oh, funny. It's funny
nominated.
to hear these historically. Like, so 2 of those people made it and 2 of them didn't.
Yeah. It was also nominated for Best First Screenplay. In the Company of Men, Neola Butte won.
Yep. The other dude made it.
Daniel J. Harris for Bible and Gun Club.
Did not make it.
Stephen S. Schwartz for Critical Care was also nominated.
Nope.
And Miguel Arteta.
Oh,
was
Miguel
also,
Arteta is real.
was also nominated.
By the way, I can do this because I'm one of the guys who didn't make it. I can make fun of all those people.
Philip Baker Hall gets nominated for Best Male Lead.
Is this the Spirit Awards?
Yes.
Okay.
Loses to Robert Duvall in The Apostle.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Duvall won like 3 awards that night. Peter Fonda was also nominated. This was a loaded category, by the way. Peter Fonda was nominated for Ollie's Gold.
Oh, yeah?
John Turturro for Box of Moonlight. And Christopher Guest for Waiting for Guffman.
Nice.
A loaded category.
Dude, what's the other?
John C. Reilly was not nominated.
Sam Rockwell was not nominated, but John Turturro was for Box of Moonlight. Have you seen that movie yet?
I have not seen that movie yet.
Is that Sam Rockwell's movie? Anyway, keep going.
Gwyneth Paltrow does not get a nomination for Best Supporting Female. Debbie Morgan wins for Eve's Bayou. In Best Supporting Male, Jason Lee wins for Chasing Amy. Samuel L. Jackson is nominated for Hard 8. Roy Scheider is nominated for The Myth of Fingerprints. Then 2 names I'm going to have a real trouble with.
Yes, let's go.
Efrain Figueroa for Star Maps.
Don't remember that. Star Maps didn't get anybody anything.
And then Ajay Naidu for Suburbia, the Linklater movie,
Yeah,
which
don't remember
I
that
think was its only nomination, which I feel like was probably a weak showing for a Linklater movie there.
Yep. Maybe it's a weak Linklater movie.
Yeah, and then Robert Elswit wins Best Cinematography. Was nominated for.
Oh, cool. And that's the cinematography used for Boogie Nights too? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, cool, man. Good for him. And what was his credits before? That'd be interesting to know. If he pulled somebody big or if he pulled somebody...
I think he... Let's see. Robert Elswit, right here. Elswit, his career, I don't think he had done much before.
Nice. Classy.
But he pretty much does a Bond movie right after this. He does Tomorrow Never Dies.
He did Human Target.
8mm with Nicolas Cage.
Have you ever seen that?
8mm?
Yeah.
I haven't. I want to
You know
badly
what it's
though.
about? It's interesting because of the way the world has changed. It's about a snuff film, right? Like a film where you see somebody die, and it was like so rare that people were holding them in secret and stuff like that. And now just like an 8-year-old can see it on the internet if he wants.
Magnolia. He does, I think, all the Paul Thomas Anderson movies up until Inherent Vice is his last one.
Yeah.
He does a lot of the Mission Impossible movies.
He did Bad Influence. So
He did Michael Clayton.
He did Steel Magnolias, dude. He was a big deal before.
Oh wait, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Where's?
Way
Oh,
down
half these didn't load. Okay.
Yeah. It's down in the 80s. So he did TV and stuff first. So he was pulling somebody good. That's smart.
Yeah.
And then he kept him with him, because this guy wasn't getting Boogie Nights and stuff before that. He was getting, although
he was
Steel
getting
Magnolias,
decent
Steel
stuff.
Magnolias is big. Is Human Target the Jean-Claude Van Damme? Oh no, that's a TV show.
Oh yeah, you're on IMDb. I don't have his television credits ahead of me.
Cool. That's good though, man.
But
Boogie
yeah,
Nights
he
is one of the
was
most
very
beautiful films
talented.
ever.
Boogie Nights is phenomenal. I actually also watched that one in anticipation of this because I figured these two probably have a lot in common.
Yeah.
I was right.
Boogie Nights is insane for a second movie to be able to pull all that off.
It's truly remarkable
Yeah,
how that
it's
happened.
bonkers, man.
And really, it was kind of like his first movie in a way, because he's making this without really knowing.
Yeah.
Like, what is the reception to my first film?
No, totally.
So that's him, and to their credit, his producers also like putting faith in him, in his vision.
Burt Reynolds was not putting faith in him.
No, and we'll get into that a little bit on next week's episode. But
Teasing next week's episode, man. How good am I at this?
yeah, but I mean, I listen to that soundtrack a lot. A lot of that is happening all the time.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me want to talk to you about something with Samuel L. Jackson. And we talked a little bit about his career choices. Is it surprising to you that he never works with him again? Because really the only... Jackson's worked with a lot of the high class of filmmakers. He's worked with Scorsese, Spielberg. He's done Spike Lee.
Yeah.
He's done Paul Thomas Anderson. The really only one, other than like George Lucas, that he really repeats with a lot is Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
And he does 3 films with Tarantino. He does Pulp Fiction, he does Django, and then he does The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
I feel like he would fit into a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson movies.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting question.
You could see him easily in Inherent Vice. Boogie Nights, you absolutely could see him in.
Yeah.
Although that might be I don't want to play the same character 2 times in a row with the same director thing.
I mean, that's different crime, and there's I mean, he yeah, it's a really good question, because even in Boogie Nights,
even in Boogie Nights, John C. Reilly's character is very similar to John C.
I don't think he worries about that, but yeah, it's just a really good question. Does Gwyneth Paltrow do any more P.T. Anderson movies either?
Gwyneth doesn't. Philip Baker Hall does, and John C. Reilly obviously does.
Yeah.
But
until he doesn't.
Yeah, until Paul Thomas Anderson's like, yeah, you're not good enough anymore.
Paul Thomas Anderson's tough on people.
I'm gonna
Now,
stick with
is it him
Seymour
not picking
Hoffman.
them or them not picking him? That's the other question.
Yeah, I mean, it could be both.
I mean, a lot of it's just
Jackson could have jumped off the bridge when he was having trouble getting the film out there.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
you never know. It's all personal relationships at the
Yeah.
end of the day, so you don't really know that kind of stuff. But it is fascinating when you point that stuff out. Like,
And he starts doing Star Wars around this time. Like, that is, I assume,
like you said,
a
he's not really-
substantial filming
yeah,
commitment.
he's not doing a lot of indie stuff either. Maybe he felt he'd done enough indie stuff for a while. But Paul Thomas Anderson's not indie anymore, so
Yeah.
it's a great question.
Especially not with Magnolia. And I think, I don't know, it's interesting to think about. Gwyneth doesn't do it either. Obviously, Philip and both Phillips and John go on to do it.
Keep going, yeah.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the ending.
Yeah.
And what do you think? I want to start with Jimmy rolling the Heart 8.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something that I believe Sidney has tried twice in this movie to get the Heart 8.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see him do it. We eventually see Jimmy do it. So I was wondering, what is your interpretation of that?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, the Hard Eight, I guess my overall interpretation is, again, like going back to, we're presented with this person of Sydney, and since it's a movie, it goes back to like, I think I may have talked about this in class, but like if you start a movie and you're in somebody's bedroom and our character is rifling through their drawers and we hear a car pull up outside, we think, get out of there, right? Instantly. Oh no, we can't get caught, right? Although objectively, the person who's robbing the house is the bad person. And so that's the cool thing about movies. You put us in their point of view. We're like, we got to get out of here. But if you were to ask somebody objectively, hey, if someone was robbing your house, do you want them to get out of there or get caught? You'd rather they get caught. So just being able to align yourself with the character in a movie is really strong. And so in that sense, Sydney is the person we're aligning ourselves with. And so in some ways, his like control, his silver fox, his coolness is stuff that we think is cool. But like we were just talking about, he's not in the big casinos. Like he's not doing well. He's made poor choices in his life and things like that. So
he's made very poor choices recently.
Yeah, presumably all the time. Yeah. Like all the time. And so for that, I'm just interested in that experience of going through it with Sydney, and like on the one hand being like, oh, I want things to work out for him. I like him. We're with him all the time. But on the other hand, going, he's a really like lousy criminal, and whatever happens to him happens. And so I just like that dichotomy of the two paths, really.
Yeah, and I think there's another way to frame it, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't agree with it. But like another viewpoint is for people who genuinely view Sidney as trying to redeem himself through John and Clementine.
Yeah.
It's a very tragic ending.
Right.
It's very much Sidney has made all these steps, and as soon as he sets up John and Clementine, it's all for naught.
Right.
Like,
he's got to go back to who he was.
He's got to go back to who he is. He's immediately covering up a kidnapping, and then he is immediately blackmailed and winds up having to kill a guy to recover $6,000, which he was stolen from him, which what he was going to use to help cover up the kidnapping.
Right.
So, it's really, in some people's view, it's really tragic. I view it more as this was always going to happen. I think we may disagree a little bit on how much of in control Sidney was.
Yeah.
I think that as long as he was aware that Jimmy was never going to kill him, which I think he was, I don't think it ever felt like Jimmy was going to try to kill him.
Yeah, you're just going to tell the truth.
Even when he was breaking down the car window with the gun. It's like, okay, well, he gave John an unloaded gun.
Yeah.
Like, he clearly doesn't want people to die. I think that that's something that is very much pointing to Sidney maybe being in a little more control than even some people would think. Even though, I guess a very casual viewer would maybe view him as in control throughout the whole thing. Someone like you and I is a little more skeptical of that. I guess my argument is maybe we're a little too skeptical on his controlling. I think he's a little more in control, but he's definitely not in any form of serious control.
Yeah.
I think he knows how this movie's going to end, and that's kind of why you see him so resigned once that kidnapping happens, where he's like, okay, I just need to do this one thing and keep them safe and get them set up. After that, whatever kind of happens.
Yeah.
And he knows where it's going. Maybe he's not in control, but he feels in control of himself in that scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the word tragedy, because on its face, the tragedy sometimes to us means like, oh, it's sad what happened. We wanted something good to happen, and then it's sad. But like in the traditional Greek sense, it's that you have this fatal flaw that you can't avoid. And so in that sense, he's a killer, and he wants to get away from that, and he can't.
Yeah.
And so there's a great moment there where he shoots Jimmy at first, and then shoots him a lot.
Yes.
And so that even feels like he was trying to pretend he wasn't something the whole time, and that's the real him.
Yeah.
When you see that second volley of shots, when he just mercilessly
Unloads.
ends that guy's life
Yeah.
and then sends the girl out of there, that's him. And that's what he's been trying to pretend he wasn't the whole time. And he's going to redeem himself through these people. But they're all so bad at what they do that his redemption arc is fumbled.
Yes. And the other thing is, you can see him. He debates shooting the girl.
Right.
Do I leave witnesses?
Right.
And he's like, no, you just go. And he banks on her not knowing him or not being able to
That's
identify
a good point,
him.
actually. Like,
But, like, in some way, he's still actively trying to escape the cycle.
yeah.
And
he's risking his own. It's an unnecessary risk trying to redeem himself if
But-
he's that stone cold a killer.
And I think the last question probably that I want to discuss with you is, do you think he gets back in touch with John?
That's a great question. Because they're supposed to check in all the time, right? So the only two options are, let's do our regular check-in. We said I'm going to call you, right? That's the way they left it. Or do you ghost John forever? So I think that the first, you can't ghost him forever. That can't be the answer at this point, and especially, like you said, that little moment of trying to redeem yourself still by letting the woman live. I just think he's gonna talk. He's gonna see him, talk to him again, and probably screw him up again some other time by either telling him the truth or not telling him the truth. But it'll either decision will be wrong.
So how do you think he goes about that, though? Because he's going... I think he doesn't talk to him again.
Okay.
I think he's going to try to move on to another reclamation project. I think that because in order for him to do it, I feel like he would probably be a suspect in this murder.
Right. They're witnesses.
Can you really go back to your hotel room for more than like a few minutes? Like, you can't wait around for John to call you, and John is still on the road. So are you going to Niagara Falls if you're Sydney? Like, are you taking yourself out of Vegas? Are you going back to the East Coast, which, by the way, is where he killed... He didn't kill them at Niagara Falls, but
Atlantic
New York,
City.
New Jersey, very close.
Yeah.
That's where he killed his father.
Yeah.
And I think the other way I view it is John's very much a tragic character, too, where he keeps losing these parental figures. And maybe it's more in the modern sense of the word tragedy, but he is continuously grasping onto these people, and they keep exiting his life for reasons that are out of his control.
Now his kids don't talk to him, and his other kids don't talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
Well, thank you very much. This was a real pleasure.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks a lot. Had a lot of fun.
And next week we have Boogie Nights with a guest who is TBD.
Thanks, man.
I don't do anything that I don't want to do. You understand?